Welcome back to the Compliance Edge podcast, the place where we break down risk, compliance, governance, and everything you need to know in business. Now, I'm your host, Muluwampunduchola, and I'm so excited to have you back for episode 3. It's been an amazing journey with you from the moment we started. I feel like we're executing our mandate. I feel like what we're supposed to be doing, we're actually doing. So just shout out to the team. We have been doing so great. And I'm so excited because this weekend we just had the compliance training. I think it's been amazing. So to everyone who attended and has continued watching our episodes, we're so excited to have you here as well. Now, today we are going to talk about a topic that I'm so excited about, that I think a lot of people in business are curious about. And if you're not yet curious, why aren't you curious about this? Because you can't be in business and not know corporate governance. So today, episode 3 is about corporate governance, the real rules of running a business. The real rules of running a business. Now, this is something every business needs to know, small or big. You need to know how to run your business, and that's really what corporate governance is about. Today, we are going to get into who controls the business, who calls the shots, who is the one who really takes the fall when something goes wrong in business. And by the end of this episode, you know the actual rules of corporate governance, who really holds the power in a business, and what systems and procedures keep companies from collapsing. So, right away, we are going to begin with what is corporate governance, what are the rules of corporate governance. So, I just want to clear something up right away. Corporate governance is not just about policies sitting in a building somewhere, like we talked about last time. It's really about who makes the decisions. It's about the rules and regulations that govern a business. It's about the structure of a company. It's about the procedures that are involved in a company running. Now, I just want to get back to the basics, okay? Like we said in episode 1 and 2, a company doesn't have its own hands and legs to act on its own behalf. It's a separate legal personality. We know that already. And we have said how companies like Vantage Point and really the business world is taking companies as a corporate citizen, meaning it has its obligations and it plays within a business environment. So that company needs or has already a way of its existence, and it has a structure that governs its relationships, how it performs in the business environment, and how things work. So, we're going to understand what that is with the entirety of this episode on corporate governance. I want to just demystify the things that confuse people. Who are the shareholders? What can they do? Who are these directors? Who are managers? And where do they fall in the structure of a business? So, we're going to go through that, and I really want you to understand who the decision makers are and who the beneficiaries are. Okay, how they're made and what's fair. Now, when it comes to literally every company, whether it's a startup or a giant corporation, you need to live by certain principles of corporate governance. Let's start with that. Number one is accountability. Okay, if you mess up, you own up. That's the rule. There are no scapegoats and there are no excuses, no matter who you are in the business. That's what I love about corporate governance. There's this aspect of extreme transparency. Now, you may be thinking, oh, well, we've heard so many things in companies, but this is why we see people taking extreme measures when they've been caught in a problem in a business. It's because there was an expectation of them and they broke that. And no matter how much they ran and hid, with a proper corporate governance structure, you'll be caught. So just don't mess up, okay? Try to do things the right way. Accountability is important. If you mess up and you make a mistake, just own it up, okay? And then transparency is a key aspect of corporate governance. I mean, it means no shady deals in the dark. You should be willing for everybody to see your report. You should be willing no matter who you are. So we're going to talk about the players of corporate governance, but I just want you to understand the rules right away, because remember, this isn't the classroom. It can be, you can learn from this. But I'm assuming some of you are professionals or you're students, but I want to give you that practical insight. And these are the rules that I want you to listen very careful. Okay? No deals in the dark. Transparency is important. Even as you are playing as a director, you have to make sure that this is something your shareholders can have insight to, your employees can have insight to, and it's not something that you just have to hide, because if you're hiding, there's a problem. Okay? So transparency is very important. And then fairness, extremely great role. We're going to talk about policy, employee relationships, and the relationships within the corporate governance structure. But the basicness is just be fair, okay? With employees, be fair with them. With shareholders, be fair with them. With customers, be fair with them. These are the things that keep your business just running without problem. Okay, they all deserve fair treatment, all these players in the corporate governance structure. And then lastly, responsibility. Running a company isn't just about making money. Making money is one aspect. And I know our entrepreneurs and our get rich quick scheme players are already disappointed and ready to just cut and tired of listening to this on the Compliance Edge podcast. But no, the reality is it's not just about running a business. It's really about making ethical decisions, making an impact with those ethical decisions. Okay, you are a corporate citizen, you are playing in a business environment, and just the same way society has expectations of you, other businesses have expectations of you as a business. You need to deliver your product, you need to deliver your service in a way that is honorable and that will encourage more people. The danger is like we understood when we looked at risk management. If you don't carry yourself in a certain way in the business environment, nobody will want to deal with you, and then you won't even make the money you're so eager to make in the first place. Okay, so real talk. Why do these rules really matter? Okay, why do they matter? You know, I want to give you an example of this cryptocurrency company. I can't mention it, but if you do your research, it's out there. Okay, it's a cryptocurrency company that exploded overnight. One man had just too much control on his own. No oversight, nobody to hold him accountable, zero transparency. The result: billions lost, and people ruined. People invested, and it was more than that. It gave a bad name to the business of cryptocurrency. So many people thought it was fraudulent just because of this one man's actions. And I know it can be like that when people are entering new spaces of business. But what I love about corporate governance is it applies across sectors, across sizes of businesses, small businesses, large businesses, medium size. Everybody needs a corporate governance structure. It's a way to just really maximize these four things that I've talked about: accountability, transparency, um, and the others as well: fairness and responsibility. But more than anything, it's a function for the company to execute the mandate that it was determined to do, okay? What it was created for in the first place. If it's a company limited by shares, you find that probably it's been created for the sake of profit making. That's what the vehicle of a company limited by shares means, that you are going to be running a business that creates a profit. But whatever it is that you're selling or whatever service you're providing in order to create that profit, you need to have the company functioning on its own independently. Those are the rules of corporate governance, that it's a separate legal personality. So, in that way, you need people to act on behalf of the company. That's where the directors come in. Okay. And you also need to be able to understand that the shareholders, the members of the company who created the company, or who are the beneficiaries of the company, don't have a stake in acting on behalf of the company, or at least not as big of a stake as most people would assume. So when we are dealing with corporate governance, we're going to understand the roles of each of those relationships. And then you think of the fact that directors probably can't do everything on their own. They don't have all the expertise, and they don't even have all the time. So they delegate their authority to others to act on their behalf. Okay, these are the things we're going to look at. I just really want you, my listener, to understand how corporate governance fits in the structure of a business so that you can become the next CEO, so you can become the next business owner, so that you can understand what it is you're taking on when you become a company secretary, and so that even if you are an employee, you understand the structure of a company so that you know that your boss's boss said this, it's something that needs to be done. Okay? So let's just get into that and talk about that. Okay, so quick pop quiz. Who runs a business? Hmm? Who runs a business? And then most of you will say the CEO because I've seen it on your Facebook bios, CEO, ABCD. But actually, no, the CEO is just the executive officer. I love to say that the ones who execute what the board decides. So the board is made up of directors. Directors are given authority to act on behalf of the company. In Zambia, that's according to Section 86 of the Companies Act number 10 of 2017. But internationally speaking, we've had the King 4 reports of corporate governance. And actually, I'm so excited because the King 5 reports are out. And I will do a special episode just to talk about King 5 and the differences what they've brought in. But right now, we're just going to keep it at that. But those are international standards that are accepted and most corporate governance practitioners are looking forward to. Okay, so there is the law that governs you at country level, which is the Companies Act. And then there's also best practice, which would be things like the King 4 ABCD. So, the CEO doesn't run the company. The board of directors are the ones who make decisions and act on behalf of the company. They are the only ones who are given the mandate to be agents of the company. Meaning, if the company had its own hands and legs, it would do what the directors are now doing by virtue of the nature of a company. Now, the law acknowledges that directors can't do everything on their own. So it gives them permission to delegate this authority, hence having the C-suite. The C-suite, starting with or being led by the CEO, is who executes what the board has decided to do in order to act in the best interest of the company. So the board basically has what we call fiduciary duties. These fiduciary duties, you can read about them. There are quite many, but for those of you who are learning, like myself, fiduciary duties are basically twofold. You act in the best interest of the company and you have a duty of care. That means you have to take care of this organization that you have been put in charge of, and you have to always act in the organization's best interest. With this relationship that the directors have with the company, you will be asking, who really runs this business? Yes, now we know it's not the CEO. Okay, the CEO is executing what the board has decided. Okay, and the board is making these decisions to act on behalf of the company. So let's break it down. You'll be wondering, where are the shareholders? They're the ones who started the company. I'll put it as simply as possible. Okay, shareholders, they own the company but don't necessarily run it. And then I say they own it, this is in consideration of the company being a separate legal personality. So Section 87 of the Companies Act that puts limitations, right, on how a director can act actually gives you insight as to what the shareholders can do, where the shareholders will decide on the name of the company, and every year they'll have an annual general meeting, an AGM, where they'll make key decisions about the company, including who is on the board of directors. Okay, so the shareholders do have that authority, but they have no mandate to run the affairs of the company or manage their affairs on a day-to-day basis. That mandate is given only to the directors, and everybody else in the company only has the authority by virtue of the delegation of the directors. Okay, so stick with me. Now, the board of directors, the watchdogs, right? They're actually watching, but they're also not just collecting. They're there making very key decisions and giving direction to the company. Now, we go to the C-suite, the CEO and his other CCCs. That's why we call them the C-suite. Okay, the chief executive officer, his chief financial officer, his chief legal officer, maybe chief human resource, depending on the structure of the company. So even as you listen to this, you can adjust that, think in your mind, say, how are we structured? Some companies will have like the president, the vice president of the company. I don't know why people do that, to be honest. I think they just try to be cool. I love the traditional aspect of just the C-suite as it should be. But as you can see, depending on the structure of the company, you'd be able to uh, see who fits within the C-suite at that time. But these are the main executives, okay? They make the big decisions, but they can't go rogue. They can't decide anything outside of the board's direction, okay? They have the authority to make key decisions that can execute the mandate of the board because they're just getting that authority by virtue of delegation, okay? Now, let's talk about some external players like regulators and governments. Okay, these are what we call the legal enforcers. Now, I'm going to pause there for a bit. Last time we talked about compliance myths, but did you really understand the importance of compliance to a business? That you are operating in a business environment, and this business environment operates within a country, and these countries have already, with a history of where they're coming from, foreseen certain problems and structured legislation and regulations that govern certain relationships, including business relationships. So there are laws in place that we should be following. And these laws, it's not a choice whether we can follow them or not. As long as you're operating within this country, you have to follow the law, no matter your opinion about what that law is. Of course, there's procedure. If you're not very happy with the law, you have to go through parliament and all that stuff. And I hope out there'll be a podcast about constitutional issues, but this is not it, my dear. So we just know that as compliance, we follow the law. So the regulators and governments will pursue a company to ensure that since you're operating within our borders, within our business environment, you are in fact following the laws and regulations. So these are the legal enforcers, okay? Not all rules are enforced equally. That's actually the truth. Okay? Not all laws are enforced equally. Some have more stringent penalties, okay, where there are fines attached and this can be detrimental. And others can attract prison time, or at least you can't put a company in prison. But if you break the law in a certain way, even you as a director or a key player of the business can end up in prison. Okay, conversation for another time. Now, with these players, we now know that the shareholders are at the very top, sort of hovering over the board of directors because they benefit from the company. If you've formulated a company that is a profit-making venture, the people who will benefit from those profits are those who have a stake in the company, who are the shareholders. So, of course, they want you to be accountable. They want to be transparent because they need to know if they are making the kind of money that they're supposed to be making or they're entitled to making. But we now go to the directors from the shareholders. They're the ones who act on behalf of the company. They're the ones who have the mandate to be the agent of the company. They are the hands and legs of the company, are moving away a company would move if it was equipped with those things. Okay? And then the directors delegate to their C-suite, and the C-suite also delegates to the employees, etc. I hope you're able to identify where you fall within that structure. Okay? So governance isn't always black and white. It's really about where the influence is held. But I'll tell you, the board of directors has all the influence and direction. Of course, the CEO can have opinions and say, listen, I'm on the ground. This is what I think we should do. And it can be taken into consideration. But he has no mandate to make all the decisions of the company on his own. He must have wiggle room for the practicality of executing that mandate on a daily basis. But he doesn't hover over the board. The board hovers over him. Okay? So, what systems keep a company from falling apart? Now, even the best governance principles mean nothing without the right systems in place. That's why when I told you about corporate governance, I said we start with the rules. Okay? The rules are a non-negotiable. They are your laws. But then you also have rules within the company. Those are your policies, okay? Your articles of association. Those are the what I love to call our in-laws. There are internal regulations. If you've been a student in any one of my classes, you remember what I've said about the in-laws, okay? Where we are saying these are the internal regulations that govern the relationships within the company itself, while the external laws govern the relationship between the company and the external players. Okay, so even the best governance principles mean nothing without the right systems in place. So let's talk about what actually works. I want to just give you solutions. Okay, what works? Okay, so number one, what works when it comes to the board? It's very important that the board have board committees. Okay, these are specialized teams that watch over finances, ethics, and risks. The three things that can put a board in trouble. If the finances are mismanaged, if they're not behaving ethically, there's no display of ethical leadership, and if their risks are not being managed. So what works is for them to have committees within themselves that are focused on these mandates even as they execute everything else they're supposed to be doing. Another thing that works, internal controls. Okay, because there's delegation, they have now offset their authority to these other players, the C-suite and all. There needs to be internal controls. They need to have limitations, and these internal controls even include auditing. Okay, where they're able to see is everyone behaving how they are mandated to behave. That's how these processes we catch fraud, conflict of interest, bad decision making. It's important for internal control so you catch a problem before it can cause further difficulty for the company. This is what works. A third thing that works, and of course, as the Compliance Edge podcast, there's no way I can tell you what works and not mention compliance frameworks. Listen, it can be very difficult to monitor what regulations pertain to a particular business. A smart person, a smart business owner, a smart lawyer is going to be able to craft a compliance framework on behalf of the company. It just allows you to see what are our external regulations, what processes do we have in place, and what policies do we need to adhere to within ourselves. Okay, the legal and regulatory rules woven into everyday operations, you need to be aware of them. That's what works. So you can pretty much have a great governance structure where you are aware that your board of directors is in charge, your shareholders are staying out of your hair, and they are being well taken care of because they're receiving their dividends. Now, on dividends, remember, dividends can only be given off of profits. That means before you declare dividends to your shareholders as a director or as the team on the ground, you have to ensure that the company's expenses have been dealt with, the company's liabilities have been dealt with, and then what remains is now what is split as dividends. Okay, so shareholders can be kept happy with you doing that. If you are accountable, you are transparent, you are responsible, it shouldn't be so difficult to keep them where they are meant to be. And what works is, again, board committees, internal controls, having a good compliance framework, and a risk management plan. Okay. For example, Microsoft is one organization that is known for strong governance. Okay. They have very clear risk management. They are very transparent. You can find a lot of their reports online. They have good AI ethical policies, transparent reporting, and the result is they stay ahead of scandals and keep investor trust. They have been one of the most stable organizations over the years, and it's really amazing to see them continue to move with the times and evolve. So that's really amazing. The lesson is good governance isn't just about avoiding fines. You don't just have a board of directors because the company is acted have board of directors. You have to realize that they're useful and they are the agents of the company that can really shift the company in the right way, especially if you follow best practice, such as have a diverse board of directors, have a board of directors as an odd number for the sake of decision making, and just, get ahead of the curve, constantly train and have good compliance measures. I'll end by saying the chief compliance officer of the company is actually the company secretary. Why? It's because the company secretary. So, wait, before I move forward, it's not that if you have a chief compliance officer, that person is the company secretary. No, I'm saying by definition of the role, a company secretary is the head of compliance. They are the chief compliance officer because they are the ones who advise the board on compliance according to section 82 to 84. They advise the board of that's of the Companies Act number 10 of 2017. They advise the board on compliance and what laws they should be following. They also ensure that the board is staying within their authority. Okay, so if the company secretary is aligned and the board is set up in such a way that there is oversight over issues of risk, the committees are doing what they're supposed to do, and the internal controls in place, the compliance framework is monitored, then I would say that you would have a very excellent corporate governance structure and your business is set to succeed. Again, I always bring in the aspect of ESG because that is where we are in our current climate. That's the G part, that governance that I've been talking about, that extra amazing structure is what is going to take you to the next level. Um, and speaking of ESG, Vantage Point Risk Consultants has a really amazing trajectory this year when it comes to ESG. We have an exciting environmental project coming up, an environmental forum that is, for me, a dream come true, but also so necessary to give back to the environment and hold other people within the business environment accountable. I can't wait for our team to share more about that. I think the compliance age is just for me to tell secrets about what's going on with Vantage Point because I stay putting you guys on. But anyway, that's coming up and I'm so excited. We have some projects that are tapping into our sustainability aspect of business. And on the S part, okay, we are giving back free public lectures around universities. And I hope to see you at your university. Everybody's invited. You don't have to just be a lawyer. You can be a business person in the medical field. We just want to make sure that students can understand at least 4 keys of business. So that's something we're excited about. That's Vantage Point's way of giving back on the social aspect of ESG. And on G, of course, we offer corporate governance advisory. Wherever your business is, wherever your company is, if you find that everybody's reporting to the accountant and the directors report to the CEO, hey, it's giving problem and we need to solve it for you. So contact Vantage Point Risk Consultants, where of course I'm the Director of Global Compliance and Training. And I hope I'll be able to serve you, but there's so many other capable members of our team depending on your business. We have human resource partners, we have environmental consultancy partners, corporate governance partners, so many exciting people that we are working with, and I hope we'll be able to bring much more insight. I know you guys just see me, but I'm the one who they've thrown into the deep end, so here I am. Okay, so that has been the Compliance Edge, and I hope you've learned a bit more about corporate governance. Let's take your burning questions in the Q&A. I really enjoyed the watch from last time, and let's see. For the burning questions, I love to just see them while I speak. So let's see what you guys had to ask. Okay. Question 1. Okay, question 1. What's the biggest governance mistake that companies make? What's the biggest governance mistake that companies make? I would say lack of oversight. Okay. A lot of times people get appointed to the board of directors and then they just forget about what they're doing as long as they've hired the CEO and some managers, and that's not right. They need to be able to follow through and put in place mechanisms to see that what they said the company was supposed to do has been done. So when the board just agrees with everything the CEO says, for me, that's a big problem. That's a mistake, and you can easily be misled. There are no checks and balances, and most importantly, the board needs to know that they are the decision makers, and the CEO is just the executor. Okay. Question 2. Does my family business need a corporate governance structure? Wow, I just love this so much. I see a lot of families working together now, which is great. I pray that my country people and the people of my skin color may learn from this. Let's work together more. But a lot of companies do work together, and I think they just set up and trust, like, oh, my auntie is this and that. But even then, you need a proper corporate governance structure. Decide who is sitting on the board of directors of this nice company you have formed, who is going to be the CEO, who will be the face of the company, who is going to handle the finances. Let your family business have structure. It will just lead you to succeed. And if you can trust each other, then very good for you. You can also bring us in to train you. That's when I say us, I mean Vantage Franchise Consultants. Of course, I'll never get tired of selling this company because we love it over here. So, yes, your family business does need a corporate governance structure. Every company needs one. Okay. For example, if there's, and this leads me to the last question, which is what happens when governance fails? So, I'm going to give the most basic example. A company which only has one director, that's a governance fail. There's nobody to hold you accountable. You're making decisions on your own, and it will fail. Plus, also, it's illegal. The Companies Act has limitations on that. Again, Vantage Point does not offer legal advice, so don't come with us with your problems. Just learn for free here, and of course, reach out to your lawyer to get the proper advice that you need. We can help you to ensure that you have compliance in place. So we're very happy to do that. But what happens when governance fails is there are lawsuits, you get sued, there's bankruptcies, you lose a lot of money, a lot of times you lose investor trust. Nobody wants to work with people who can't comply with the law because they don't want the problems. And also there's a huge amount of reputational risk. We see that with the Enron scandal and others. And I would love to set an episode where we just go through all these different cases and we just test all the principles that we've learned. I think episode 7, which is the final episode of this series, will be that where we test all the theories that we have learned as far and see them operate in practice. That would be amazing. So that's been our episode today. I'm just going to give my closing thought, and of course, we always end with a Bible verse. And I think my closing thought is just at the end of the day, corporate governance is about discipline. You need discipline to run a business. You really need to have clear rules and keep power in check, and just use strong systems to enforce accountability. Uh, to wrap up, here's our Bible verse that sums this up perfectly. It's Proverbs 11, verse 14. Lots of wisdom in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 11, verse 14, and it says, where there is no guidance, a people falls. But in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. I mean, hallelujah. Hallelujah. You know, it's just God really foresees everything, even how to run business. Where there is no guidance, a people falls. But in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. Have a nice, robust board of directors, and have advisors like Vantage Produce Consultants. And that is governance. It's not about one person making decisions. It's about structures that protect the whole organization. Now, that's it for today's episode. This has been the Compliance Edge podcast, and I will see you again for episode 4. Look out for all the ESG initiatives that Vantage Point has in place. Make sure you have subscribed and liked the Compliance Edge podcast. I'd love to happily announce you can not only see us here on YouTube, but you can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Deezer and everywhere else where you listen to your podcast. And it's been amazing. Take care.